Welcome to the Shepherd Podcast. I'm Pastor Chris here with Pastor Andy. You get a double dose of pastors today because we are going to have some fun. We're going to do a quiz show, a Jeopardy-style quiz show to teach you some things from the book of Acts. This coming weekend, September 11th and 12th, we will be entering into a new sermon series on the book of Acts. It's called Moving Forward, and it's about people who help to move the story of the church forward, to move the gospel mission into the next stages where God was taking it. And so in this series, we're going to be profiling some people from the book of Acts. We're not going to do some of the obvious ones, Peter and Paul and some of the disciples, because, well, we can talk about them in other series. But this one in particular, we want to look at some of the people who make up the story of the book of Acts, maybe some people you've heard of, some people who may be less familiar, and through this to see how the Holy Spirit was moving things forward and how we also can be people who move God's mission forward. So we have some questions that we put together, and I expect that we'll get them all right because we wrote them. And so we're looking forward to sharing this with you. The point is not to compete over points. The point of all this is to intrigue you about our upcoming sermon series and to help you to learn some more things about the Bible, the book of Acts. So, Pastor Andy, are you ready for our Jeopardy game?
I think so. I think I'm ready to go.
All right, well, this is going to be fun. So we'll just take turns asking and answering, and I'll ask you first. First of all, you have to tell me which category would you like. This is Jeopardy, so we've got different groupings of chapters and point totals, 100, 200, up to 600. So what category would you like?
I'll go with other for 100 points. We'll start at the top.
Okay, other for 100. Here's your question, or your statement that you have to answer as a question, because this is Jeopardy. This person had 4 unmarried daughters who prophesied.
Who is Philip?
That is correct.
All right, good start.
All right. Philip.
I feel like that particular fact is often neglected or overlooked, having the 4 daughters that it talks about there. So, all right, you're up. What category would you like to choose from, and how many points?
All right, let's do chapters 16 through 18 for 200.
200. All right, here is the statement. He had a Greek father and Jewish mother. Greek father and Jewish mother.
Who is Timothy?
That is also correct.
All
Timothy,
right.
Yes.
Yeah, in Paul's letters to Timothy, we've got 1st and 2nd Timothy. He identifies Timothy's mother and grandmother. So you've got grandmother Lois and mother Eunice. Don't know dad's name, but we do know that his mother and grandmother were very faithful people. So a great example for the mothers and grandmothers in our families as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, what would you like?
Let's do chapters 1 through 7 for 100.
Chapters 1 through 7 for 100. He wrote the book of Acts.
All right, who is Luke?
Very good.
Luke, who was a doctor, correct? A physician?
Dr. Luke.
And I like how Luke and Acts, the Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts, are kind of one continuous book, meant to be one read right after the other. So Luke ends with the ascension of Jesus, if I remember correctly, and then Acts kind of backs up just slightly and then just keeps going after the ascension.
Right.
So I like how those two fit together.
Yeah, absolutely. Part 1 and part 2.
Yep. All right, question number 2 for you.
All right, I'm going to get into the 300 category.
Okay.
How about chapters 1 through 7 for 300?
300.
Yep.
All right. He was appointed to replace Judas as a disciple.
Who is Matthias?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Who's Matthias?
That's a good question. Who is Matthias?
Yeah. I feel like I don't know much about Matthias. I was going to ask you if you knew how they chose him. You know, the Bible talks about how they
by lots.
That's right. Casting
Yeah.
lots, kind of like when at
Yeah.
Jesus' crucifixion.
Yeah, yeah.
And it, they cast lots for his clothes, his garments, and here it talks about casting lots also.
Yeah. I looked up Matthias to see where else he appears in the Bible. This is it.
This is the only time. Okay.
Yeah, 2 different verses in Acts chapter 1 when he was under consideration, when he was chosen, and after that, we don't know anything else about him.
Yeah. We hear the name Matthew a lot, but not necessarily Matthias. Today, I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
All right. What would you like next?
Let's go other for 300.
Other for 300. He had the final decisive word at the Jerusalem Council from Acts 15.
Who is James?
Very good.
Yes. And the Jerusalem Council, some viewers may be familiar with, some not, but kind of helping set some people straight on their understanding of Scripture or correcting. I'm trying to think. There was some event right before that caused this confusion to be made clear, right? And then it led to this Jerusalem Council.
Yeah, and they were determining what's necessary to be a part of the Christian family. Do you have to become a Jew first before you become a Christian? And it came down to, it's the gospel.
Yep.
And then there were a few things I found interesting at the end of their instructions. Well, but don't do this or this, just not to cause offense, like culturally.
Yeah.
But in terms of being in God's kingdom, it's faith in
For what's
Jesus.
necessary. Yep.
Yeah.
And James had the final say.
By the way, which James are we talking about? There's more than one James.
It's not James, who we typically talk about, like the brother of Jesus, things like that. I don't believe so.
This one's the brother of Jesus.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
2 more Jameses though in the New Testament.
There's James the Lesser.
Yeah.
Is that and then James and John?
Yep. That's it. Yeah. So this was
the son
not
of
one
Zebedee.
of the 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have James, son of Zebedee, James the Lesser, and then this was James, Jesus' brother.
James, the brother of Jesus.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. What question would you like next?
I would like chapters 8 through 10 for 500.
8 through 10 for 500. Okay, getting into the big points now.
That's right.
He was sent from Jerusalem to help the growing church in Antioch.
Okay. Who is Barnabas?
That's correct. Yes,
right.
Barnabas.
Very good. Good old Barnabas. Did a little research on Barnabas, and I always think of him as Paul and Barnabas going together. But interestingly, after Paul converted to Christianity, so he was Saul at the time, it was Barnabas who brought him to the other disciples and said, hey, this guy is for real. This is not some sort of a plot
That's right.
to capture the Christians. So he was the one who vouched for Paul originally.
That's right. I had forgotten about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Then he and Paul went on their travels later after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
All right. What would you like?
Let's go chapters 16 through 18 for 300.
Okay. They corrected Apollos' theology.
So that would be who is Priscilla and Aquila.
Mm-hmm.
Priscilla and Aquila.
That is correct.
All right. And that was a husband and wife team. I think we have some other questions coming up about them, so I don't want to say too much. But
Yeah, they weren't really major characters, but I think we got about 3 questions on them.
absolutely.
Yeah, and their names just go so perfectly. They must have known that they were meant for each other just by how well their names fit.
Yeah, you don't often hear of just Priscilla or just Aquila. At least when you're talking about them in Scripture, it's always Priscilla and Aquila, and they happen to rhyme.
Yeah,
So,
very good.
which question next for you?
How about, just for fun, chapter 16 through 18 for 400.
All right. They moved to Corinth after Emperor Claudius expelled the Jews from Rome.
Who is Aquila and Priscilla?
That's correct.
All right.
Same. That was the fact I was going to share after the last question, and then I thought, we better wait because that answers that. And Aquila and Priscilla were tent makers, I believe.
Yeah,
Or worked with fabric and things like that.
Right?
So,
Yeah. I was looking up this one. Okay, it says that Claudius kicked the Jews out of Rome, and I was wondering, well, what happened? Why did he kick them out of Rome? And I really couldn't. The scripture doesn't say what happened, but there's a little bit of secular history that says there was some sort of a disturbance over the Christian faith and I guess some conflict over this new faith. But the Bible doesn't really tell us what all happened there. But it was part of God's plan to move things forward, to get them in Corinth.
spread them out.
Yeah,
Yep.
important church there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, what would you like next?
Let's go chapters 1 through 7 for 500.
1 through 7 for the big money, 500. Okay. He stood by watching Stephen's death approvingly.
Who is Saul?
That is correct.
And this to me, I don't know why. I mean, I do know why, but just thinking about that and thinking where Saul's life ends up, it's just incredible to go from putting a Christian to death to trying to make Christians, convert people to Christianity.
What a complete turnaround.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if anybody thinks that whatever they've done in life excludes them from God's love, I think Paul always held himself up as the example of, I'm the chief of sinners, but I'm not beyond grace.
Yeah. Quite a story.
Yeah.
All right, what would you like?
How about other for 400?
Other for 400. Okay. His potential involvement sparked a sharp disagreement between Paul and Barnabas.
Who is John Mark?
That is correct also.
All right. John Mark, the author of Mark's Gospel. So Paul and Barnabas split up, and then that's when Paul ended up teaming up with Silas.
Yeah.
And Mark actually appears in, I think, a couple more letters of Paul. Apparently there was some sort of a reconciliation, and he was once again considered a partner in the gospel.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's pretty cool.
Yep, and Mark did some traveling with Barnabas, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that, again, kind of what was seen as something negative, a disagreement, also kind of allowed them to, instead of going the same place, to split up and go different places.
Yeah.
So
it's one of the neat things about the book of Acts I'm really looking forward as we get into this series is just how God uses all these different people and different events for his ultimate purposes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll find some connections to our own lives and the lives of the congregation. God does the same things for us. He uses a variety of people and events, and sometimes events that don't look so good, in order to move his story forward in our lives.
That's right. All right, so is my question up next?
You're up. What would you like?
I realized I just answered one of the questions coming up, so I'll go with other for 500.
Other for 500. That's one of the things when we talk after these questions, we might reveal another one.
That's right.
But we'll see.
I want this easy one.
We'll see if people were paying attention, though.
Okay, sounds good.
So Paul chose him as his new partner after Barnabas.
If what I said before was correct, our guests should know, if they were listening, like you said, that who is Silas?
Silas, that
Paul
is
headed
correct.
off with Silas.
Yep, that is correct. Who is Silas? Anything we know about Silas? I got a couple notes here.
Yeah, what do you have?
He was noted as a prophet, and he was one of the, out of that Jerusalem council from Acts 15, he was one of the people sent back to the city of Antioch with the information that had been arranged to share at that time.
Okay.
So, but yeah, he was called a prophet. I found that interesting.
Yeah, we typically think of Old Testament.
Yeah.
Here in Acts, we have talk of that.
Yeah. Okay. I'll do 8 through 10 for 100, please.
Okay. This person met the Ethiopian eunuch and explained the scriptures to him.
Okay. And that would be, who is Philip?
Correct again. Yes, Philip.
The Ethiopian eunuch was reading from the scroll of Isaiah, and I believe reading about the suffering servant of the Lord. And Philip had an opportunity for evangelism, got to tell him who that sacrificial servant was.
Yeah, absolutely. And another example of it not happening when Philip was maybe expecting it, or it wasn't like he was asking people to come and he was all prepared, but it was just on the road.
Yeah, what a great example for ourselves, just being prepared for those divine moments that God puts in front of us. Maybe things that aren't on our calendar or on our radar at all, but just to be ready and open and responsive to the leading of the Spirit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll go chapters 8 through 10 for 200.
She died and was brought back to life by Peter.
One of my favorite names in this game, in Acts, who is Dorcas.
That is correct.
Yes. I looked up, so Dorcas was also known as Tabitha.
Right.
And Tabitha was her Aramaic name. And then Dorcas is her Greek name.
Okay.
But they both mean gazelle.
Gazelle.
Gazelle, yes.
All right, very graceful.
Yep.
Excellent. All right, I think I want to get into the 600s.
Ooh, feeling wild, huh?
Feeling wild and feeling confident because, again, we wrote these questions. Yep, so hopefully we can answer them. Okay, what about, what about chapters 16 through 18 for 600?
Okay. She was the first convert in Europe.
And that would be, who is Lydia?
Yes.
Lydia, the first convert in Europe. So she was converted to the Christian faith by Paul, and this was in Philippi, which is modern-day Greece.
Okay.
So that's the entry of the gospel into Europe, and then, of course, Europe became such an important place for the gospel over many, many centuries.
Absolutely. You don't often think of Bible events happening in Europe. You think of the Middle East and things like that. But
right, yeah.
Lydia was the first convert there in Europe.
Yeah. All right, your turn.
I'll go 600 as well. Chapters 8 through 10 for 600.
She was noted for being full of good works and charity.
I think this was the last one I had. Who is Dorcas?
You obviously have an affinity for Dorcas.
That's right, evidently.
Yeah.
Yep. And she, if I remember correctly, made clothes and things like that for homeless people or people who were in need.
Yeah.
Those who couldn't afford their own. And so that's why that's one of the reasons she was mentioned as being full of good works and charity.
I want to say that many years ago there was something called a Dorcas Society in the Lutheran Church, and it was women who would get together and do acts of charity. I believe that that's the case. Okay. What about chapters 1 through 7 for 600?
1 through 7 for 600. Okay. They were among the 7 chosen in Acts 6 to assist the apostles.
Who is, I want to say who are, but this is Jeopardy. We have to say who is Stephen and Philip.
Yes. Who is Stephen and Philip? They were among the 7 chosen in Acts 6 to assist the apostles. So not apostles themselves, but specially chosen by God, ultimately, to assist the apostles.
Yeah, and there were 7, right? But we don't know, their names are listed, but I don't think any of them are described in stories besides Stephen and Philip, so we just chose to highlight those 2 in this case.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The rest are just names, I say, but we don't know much about them.
Yeah. All right. Your turn.
Okay, let's go chapters 8 through 10 for 400.
He was the first Gentile convert to Christianity in Acts.
Who was Cornelius?
And that is correct.
Yes, and he was a part of the Roman military, right?
Mm-hmm.
But came to believe in Jesus, and as it says, a Gentile convert, but very supportive of the church and what was going on.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Okay, I'll do 16 through 18 for 100, please.
Okay, we talked about tent making before, so this person was a tent maker by profession.
Who is the Apostle Paul?
Yes. And that's one of the reasons he I believe, met up with Priscilla and Aquila because they were also tent makers. And
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They had this common, what do you call it? Way of making money.
Yeah.
Yeah, background.
Yeah, they could talk tent lingo with
That's
each
right.
other.
And Paul is used, I've heard him used before, sometimes today we have bivocational pastors
Right.
who may have a 8 to 5 job, 9 to 5 job during the day, and then they're pastors at night and on the weekend. And Paul
Right.
is an example of someone doing that.
Did you ever consider bivocational in your seminary career?
I did not, just because I have such a respect for people that have that busy of lives and are able to balance it all.
Yeah.
So,
Seems like a good model for church planting
yeah,
to be able to help pay for the pastor's salary through another career.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it worked for Paul.
Yep.
Okay.
How about other for 200?
Okay. Other for 200. He was shipwrecked on a journey to Rome.
Who is Paul?
There he is again, Paul. Yeah.
This is one story that, at least me, I think of, he was shipwrecked and he made it out and all those things. But if you think of a shipwreck, I mean, that's a pretty tragic circumstance. His life was very much in jeopardy.
Right.
It's no small thing to be in a shipwreck, especially as a prisoner.
Yeah, and that's toward the end of the book of Acts, and he ends up making it to Rome, and that's where
Yeah.
the story ends. So this is almost at the end of the book.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, some of the jailers who were keeping an eye on the prisoners on the ship wanted to kill all the prisoners so they didn't escape and run away. And then I think somebody stepped in and said, "Hey, Paul's a good guy. Let's not kill them." So
I even think while they ended up on an island, I believe, and he got bit by a snake and was not harmed. And so interesting thing is, I'm thinking Gilligan's Island, but it wasn't quite like
yeah,
that.
a 3-hour
Yeah.
tour.
Yeah. Right. Okay. My turn.
Yes.
Okay. Let's do. We don't have that many left to choose from.
No.
Let's do 16 through 18 for 500, please.
All right. He is described as an eloquent man, competent in the scriptures.
Who is Pastor Andy?
I would love that to be said about me, but I am not. That is not the correct answer for this particular question.
Oh, okay. Let me try again. Who is Apollos?
There you go.
Another A name.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's also described as fervent in spirit, which I think is a pretty good way to be described.
Yes.
You know.
Absolutely. When I think of Apollos, I think of in Paul's letter to the Corinthians, some say I follow Paul, some say I follow Apollos. So there was some loyalties to the different church leaders, and he was in the midst of that. So apparently a pretty charismatic guy, seems like.
Must have been pretty persuasive, and
Yeah.
people enjoyed being around him and listening to him.
Right, yeah.
So,
Yeah. All right. What would you like?
chapters 1 through 7 for 400.
His name means son of encouragement.
Who is Barnabas?
And that is correct.
Yes, there's another, if you're going to be described in some way, that's a good way to be described.
Son of encouragement.
All right, what about you?
1 through 7 for 200, please.
Okay. While dying, this person saw Jesus at the right hand of the Father.
Who is Stephen?
Yes.
This is one of my favorite little thoughts that I've heard that I want to share is Jesus is always mentioned as being seated at the right hand of the Father, and here he's mentioned as standing at the right hand of the Father. And one person commented Stephen was getting a standing ovation for his faithful witness.
I never heard that.
Yeah. So the first Christian martyr, the first person to die for his faith there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, is this the Stephen that Stephen Ministry is named after?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yep. Same Stephen and Philip from Acts 6.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely someone you want to name a ministry after.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is my last question. I'm going to go with chapters 8 through 10 for 300.
All right. He spoke to Peter after his vision of clean animals.
Who is Cornelius?
That is correct.
And we talked about Cornelius before being in the Roman army, pretty high up in the Roman army.
Yep.
And I think we'll talk about in this series how it was in his home where things really started to explode, so to speak. You know, the growth really started to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So,
absolutely. Okay, well, I'd tell you the category, but there's only one left.
That's right.
And it's a toughie. It's other for 600. This is big money.
Yeah, that's right. The very last question on the board. So, he was the leader of the church in Jerusalem whom Paul visited.
Who is James?
Yes, that's right. We talked about James with having the final word at the Jerusalem Council.
Yep.
And very likely could have been because he was the leader of the church in Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I guess you have a lot of credibility when you're the brother of Jesus.
yeah,
Yeah?
absolutely.
You know, it's interesting. James did not believe in Jesus at first. All the family thought Jesus was out of his mind. And then 1 Corinthians 15 says that James was one of the people that Jesus appeared to right after his resurrection. And so that must have been that conversion moment.
Yeah.
And once again, from disbelief and skepticism all the way to being the leader of the church in Jerusalem, just what God can do in a person's life.
Yeah. Crazy transformation.
Yeah. Well, we did it. We made it through the questions. I hope you all enjoyed that and learned some things from it, and hopefully you got a few of them right as well. Some of these are tough questions because unless you've really studied the book of Acts, and we did it to prepare this, you know, a lot of this can be Bible trivia, you know, not as common of knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. We've spent quite a bit of time in it, I feel like, lately. And so if a couple months ago you were to ask me some of these questions, I very likely would not have known without looking it up. So
yeah, it's going to be a great study of the book of Acts. What are you most looking forward to about bringing our congregation through the book of Acts in this way?
I think Acts is just such an exciting time in the church, and very applicable, I think, for our world today, because we see all these restrictions and things that are happening that make us wonder, is the church dying or different things like that. But it's when the church, here in Acts, the church was most persecuted and most under control and people trying to stomp it out, that's when it really grew. So it's just an exciting time in the Bible and in our church history.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of things I'm looking forward to. One, just personally, I love reading biographies, and so I'm really looking forward to profiling some of these different people, learning about them, and seeing how God works in individual lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said at the beginning, we're not focusing on the big ones that you probably hear of all the time. And so hopefully us, as well as our members and people listening, will learn some new things about these people.
Yeah. So we begin September 11th and 12th, this coming weekend from when this episode airs. So please be with us in worship. It's going to be a great new sermon series. Thank you for joining us for the Shepherd Podcast today. This was fun.
This was fun.
Yeah, and we learned a lot.
Absolutely. Hopefully the viewers did as well.
Yeah. Well, please join us the next time for the Shepherd Podcast. And until then, God's blessings to you. May He keep you healthy and safe and strong. And the peace of the Lord be with you today.